Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game preview. Brighton and Hove Albion versus Everton tomorrow afternoon. 3 o'clock kickoff. Feels like an absolute age since we last had a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday. I can't tell you how thankful I am to be able to watch Everton Football Club and still have another day of the weekend to be able to get over it and not have to worry about football. Obviously, Brighton away, we all know how difficult of a fixture this is. Little bit of a strange fixture this because it appears to be an incredibly difficult game. We're going up against a team that are absolutely fantastic at home and have got a fantastic home record of late and are also doing really, really well in the league as well. They're doing really well in Europe. They're a real strong, solid side, Brighton, and we've spoke about Brighton a number of times over the years that we've done this channel, and we've praised Brighton a number of times over the years that we've done this channel. We've praised their recruitment, we've praised their management, we've praised everything about that football club because it seems like from the outside looking in, it seems very much like there's a almost a general understanding or certainly feeling that Brighton are the one of, if not the best run football clubs within the country. Now, being a fan of who I believe is the worst run football club in the country, or certainly one of the worst run football clubs in the country, it's always interesting when you come up against somebody that is absolutely completely polar opposite to you and does their business and their work in exactly the way you would like your football club to do. It's always interesting to discuss those teams and discuss those games. But like I said, this is a bit of a strange one, this, because for as good as Brighton are, and for as good as Brighton have been for the last couple of years or so, for as good as they've been at home, for as solid as they've been, and for as much of a calamity as Everton have been, we've done relatively well in recent years when we've gone to the Amex. We've won there the last 2 seasons on the spin. Obviously, we won there early in August, the season before last. Big win at the beginning of the season for Rafa Benitez. And then obviously last year, which was much more of a shock. I feel like, winning there at the beginning of the season in August when, things haven't quite got started and teams haven't quite, settled down into the league and into their form. Yeah, I feel like that could happen to any side. But to beat them the way in which we did last season, in the circumstance in which we did, was a complete and utter shock. In fact, I remember sitting down and doing the instant match reaction to this game last season and generally being shocked and very, very nearly lost for words. Now, I say that because I probably ranted for 15 minutes afterwards, but I just remember sitting there for the first 20, 30 seconds of the video thinking, what do I even say here? How do I even describe what I'm feeling at the moment? And that was because it was a result that come out of absolutely nowhere. And it was that much out of nowhere that I still remember sitting there at 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, 25 minutes to go, still not thinking we were going to win that game of football. And little did I know we were going to go and win it 5-1. And, absolute huge result for Sean Dyche. Probably Sean Dyche's biggest result, second to the Bournemouth game during his Everton career so far in terms of importance, because like I said, it come at a time where we were in absolutely horrific form. We didn't look like we could buy a win, from anywhere, and all of a sudden we go to a really solid side away from home, and not only did we beat them, but we beat them in quite the fashion. And I suppose the hope is that we can manage to go and do that again tomorrow. I'm not quite sure that will be the case. It was very much a freak result that last year, and I think we can all sort of accept and all admit that it wasn't one that you would expect to see again. Now, I'm not saying I think Everton, are incapable of beating Brighton, because I think we are capable of beating Brighton. We all know Everton are much better away from home than what we are at Goodison Park. The manager hasn't quite seemingly got it nailed down at Goodison so far this season, and I know people will blame various different components. I know some people will blame the players. I know some people will blame Dominic Calvert-Lewin and various other different components. But for me, when you've won 3 home games in an entire season, and we're now into February and we're still only searching for our 4th home win of the year, or of the season, sorry, and we've lost to teams like Luton multiple times, Fulham, Wolves, that for me is something that the manager has to take responsibility for. I'm not saying he's the only person to blame. I'm not saying he should take full responsibility, but he definitely should take some responsibility for the fact that we've been so poor at Goodison this season. That can't really be said away from home. Generally, away from home, we've been really solid all season, barring that performance against Wolves and probably the performance against Aston Villa earlier on in the season. We've not really played poorly away from home. Now, granted, okay, we've lost games and we might have, we might have given away points at times that we should have been able to go on and win. The game against Sheffield United in September, was it? August is one that springs to mind. But generally, every performance, barring that performance against Villa and Wolves, those performances against Villa and Wolves, have been really solid away from home. And we've got some big wins, and we've been able to go to teams that are difficult to beat at home and who have got are known for having a decent record at their home grounds, and we've been able to frustrate them, stop them from doing what they want to do, and go and hit them on the other end and win the game. And that, I think, will be the game plan for tomorrow as well. Obviously our last away performance against Manchester City was okay, one that we lost, but again, there's not many teams on this planet that would be able to stop Manchester City from having a shot on target and in an entire game, and we managed to do that for nearly 70 odd minutes. Now, yes, once they got their goal, it was pretty much game, set and match from that point, but we still put in a really solid, hard working performance up until that point. So there's no reason we can't go and do that again tomorrow. Like I said, I don't expect it to be another 5-1. I don't expect it to be another performance of that ilk, because Everton are in a much different position now than what we were when we went last season, even though we're in a similar position in terms of the table. When we went to Brighton last season, I don't think any of us thought we even had the chance of winning, because we were that bad away from home. We won 2 away games all season last season. We won 2 away games all season the season before. So it was more of a shock because of the fact we'd won, and then a shock on top of that, by the fact that we'd won by such a margin. I think if Everton come away with 3 points tomorrow, it won't be a shock because, like I said, we are much better away from home than we are at Goodison Park, and we've shown that we can go to, difficult places and pick up some big results. That being said, it will be incredibly difficult. Brighton are a fantastic side and have got a really good home record at the moment. 7th in the Premier League. They sit 25 games played, 10 wins, 8 draws and 7 defeats, currently on 38 points. And if you look at some of their recent performances, a huge 5-0 win against Sheffield United last Sunday. They were beaten 2-1 by Tottenham. They were both away fixtures. If you look at some of their last home fixtures, a 4-1 win against Crystal Palace, which is a big game for them. 0-0 draw with Wolves, 4-2 win against Tottenham, 1-0 win against Marseille in the Europa League, 2-1 win against Brentford, 1-1 draw against Sheffield United, 1-1 draw with Fulham, 2-0 win against Ajax, 2-2 draw with Liverpool. You've got to go back a long way before you find Brighton's last defeat at home. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was against AEK Athens on the 21st of September in the Europa League. Since then, they've played Bournemouth at home, beaten them. They've played Liverpool at home, drew with them. They've played Ajax at home, beaten them. Drew with Fulham, drew with Sheffield United, drew with Burnley, beaten Brentford, beaten Marseille, beaten Tottenham, and then obviously, as I just mentioned, drew with Wolves, beaten Crystal Palace as well. So, September, since Brighton last lost a home game, is quite the feat, really, and shows just how solid and just how strong they are and just how capable they are as well. And they've had a pretty up and down sort of season so far. And I feel like they're just starting to get into the rhythm of things. I feel like they're just starting to find that balance between being able to compete in Europe and being able to compete in the league as well. And it's always difficult when you're a side that haven't really got a lot of European experience and don't often play in European competitions to be able to balance that, that conundrum, because it is, and we've seen it numerous times. I've witnessed it firsthand with Everton. Whenever I've watched Everton in Europe, it's always been through the sacrifice of the league. We've either done really well in the league and struggled in our European group, or we've done really well in our European group and struggled in the league. And when I say struggled, it really puts things into context, because I remember thinking Everton was struggling when we were 13th in the Premier League, and when we were, into the latter stages of the Europa League in 2015-16. The reality of it is, or it might have been even in 2014-15, was it? The reality of it is that wasn't the case. We were doing okay in the league, and we were doing really well in the Europa League. We now know what struggling is, but it is difficult to balance those two things, and to be able to compete, at a high level in both of those competitions consistently. And I think Brighton are just starting to sort of nail that down, and just starting to get that in order. So this will be an incredibly difficult game. I've got absolutely no doubt about it. Tomorrow, Brighton are very much the opposite to what we are at the moment. They've got a fantastic group of players. They've got a fantastic group of attacking players who are capable of scoring goals and capable of winning games of football, and we've seen that numerous times. They do concede goals, and they can be susceptible to being punished for their mistakes. But we all know this will be an incredibly difficult task, because this Everton team finds it incredibly difficult to score goals against sides that pretty much invite them on to score goals. So tough game. We obviously know Brighton have got an awful lot of quality there at their disposal. Players like Matoma, who I believe may have an injury, but I'm not quite sure on that one. Obviously, they've got Ansu Fati on loan from Barcelona, João Pedro, who's done really, really well there in his first season, Evan Ferguson, who obviously is, been fantastic for them. They've got a number of top quality, high quality players that are capable of really, really hurting teams if they're not absolutely on top form, and that's what Everton have got to be tomorrow. There's absolutely no room for a performance like Monday night against Crystal Palace, because they will absolutely wipe the floor with us. And yes, I understand, that was a home game, and we play, different away from home, and we are much better away from home. The players seem to understand the system a lot more. The players seem to understand what is wanted of them a lot more away from home as well, and I get that completely. But we will have to be at our best tomorrow, and the defence will have to be at its best to be able to deal with Brighton's attack. And at the end of the day, if we're presented with an opportunity and we're presented with a chance, we've got to be ready to take it, and that's something that's been, I think, the biggest sort of critique of this Everton side in recent times. It's not been the defensive ability. We've been absolutely fantastic defensively this season, and the stats will back that up. The clean sheet stats will back that up. It's more, are we able to take an opportunity if one arises? Are we able to be as clinical as we were there last season? Because last season not only was a huge surprise because we'd managed to go away from home and win a game, and we'd won it by such a big margin, but it was a huge surprise because pretty much every time we got the ball in that game and we transitioned forward and we created an opportunity for ourselves, it ended in a goal. I think there was maybe one or two times that we transitioned forward and counter-attacked and didn't get anything out of it. But every other time, barring that, it ended in a goal. And I remember sitting there thinking, it's mad that Everton have won a game away from home. We've won it 5-1 by a four goal margin, and yet I'm not the most surprised at either of those two things. The most surprising thing for me was the fact that we were so clinical. We were so clinical with our chances. Every chance we got, we took almost, and that isn't something we've been able to say about this Everton team ever. And one of the biggest sort of critiques of this Everton side in recent times is that we aren't clinical enough. We don't take those opportunities. We don't create anywhere near enough, as to what we should create. But when we do create, we don't take them. We're wasteful. We miss big chances, and big chances that ultimately end up coming back to bite us on the arse. So, tomorrow is another one of those opportunities to go away from home and to put a performance in. And for me, I'm quite nervous about tomorrow because, as I've said a couple of times, there seems to be this acceptance for results like a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace at Goodison Park, or the draw with Brighton at Goodison Park. Now, Brighton are a fantastic side, but Everton were ahead in that game until, the last 5 minutes, and then conceded the silly goal, and everybody was sort of seemed to be happy that we'd taken a point from Brighton. We got a point, that's not too bad, that's a decent result. Those games, not necessarily Brighton, because Brighton are a decent side, but your Lutons, your Nottingham, your Lutons, your Crystal Palaces, your Wolves, your Fulhams, these are all games that Everton have played at Goodison Park this season and have not gotten anything out of, or not won. And for me, in order to combat that, if you like, and sort of have that as I don't know what the word I'm looking for that to be acceptable, we need to be able to go away from home and win games of football, and put performances in, and we haven't been able to do that of late. Although we've played well, although we've been strong, although we've been better than we have been at home, we've not been able to get over the line. And although I'm not hugely confident about tomorrow, we need to get a win. Ultimately, we're absolutely desperate for the win, and that's why it surprises me that there was even any Evertonians that were remotely happy with the result on Monday night, because we haven't won a game of football in the Premier League since December. Fucking December. No results other than a win is good enough at this point against anybody. I can understand losing to Manchester City isn't the end of the world, but there's not a team in this league Everton can come up against between now and the end of the season where a draw or a defeat would be a good result. None. Absolutely none. We need to start winning games. And, as I said, it will be difficult tomorrow, but it isn't impossible. And I get things have gone against us. Obviously the 10 points off the pitch. We've had huge amounts of injuries. We've had absolutely ridiculous luck in terms of decisions with referees. We've had every referee Everton have had this season has been against us. But we need to start winning games of football, because we're in danger of falling behind. Anyway, let's get into my predicted starting 11 then ahead of this game. The Blues says I was happy with the point because I never expected 3 before kickoff and we were losing. If we start accepting points in games like that, then we may as well just accept that we're going down and we'll be playing in League One in a couple of years, because that's I know I get where you're coming from. We were losing with 10 minutes to go, and we none of us had a lot of hope going into it, but Palace are fucking woeful. And the fact that we couldn't beat them on Monday night is terrifying. I don't care if it's negative. I don't care if, you can't say that about Sean Dyche because he's the fucking mastermind of everything. It's terrifying. The fact we haven't won a Premier League game since December is terrifying. I know there's a lot of things going on, and I know there's various different things happening, but there's no excuse for turning up against that woeful Palace side and not being able to beat them, in my opinion. Anyway, let's get into the starting 11. But we're not, though, are we, mate? Because as you said just before, if we had our points back, we'd be 12th, 13th in the Premier League table. So we're clearly not woeful. We're a mid-table side. Anyway, let's get into it. In goal, I'm going for Jordan Pickford. Listen, he's our number one. There's not much more to say about it. I'm not going to sit here and ramble for 10 minutes because he plays every week. Left back, Vitaly Mykolenko. 2 centre-backs, Tarkowski and Branthwaite, of course. And then right back, I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with Ben Godfrey. I would have it as Seamus Coleman if he was fit and available. But we don't know whether or not he's going to be fit and available. So I'm going to go with Ben just as a sort of... a backup, I suppose. If Seamus is fit for me, he starts. Ashley Young gets nowhere in it. If Ashley Young is in that starting 11 at 2 o'clock tomorrow, you mightn't get an instant match reaction out of me, because I don't know if I can be arsed wasting my time watching it. And that's not personally against Ashley Young. It just ain't going to work. As it's not worked at all in any game this season. Even when he's had alright games, doesn't mean it's worked. He's just not been as fucking drastically shite as he has been in other games. Into the midfield, I'm going to go with... Onana. I'm going to go with Garner Gay, and I'm going to go with Decore. I'm going to leave James Garner out. And I know that might be a bit controversial, but the way I see it is Amadou Onana is our best midfielder, technically, and is the most likely to be able to have an impact on a game. And Garner Gay has been our most informed midfielder. He's been absolutely fantastic of late, and James Garner for me has been good. He puts himself about, he battles, he works hard, but I don't think he's been anything special, to be honest. I don't think he's been anything special. I think him coming out the team wouldn't mean a mass amount of difference at the moment, because Onana needs to be in that team. Regardless of what you think of Onana, he needs to be in that team for two reasons. One of them, because he's our best midfielder. Fact. Absolute fact. And two, because if we're wanting to sell him for some money, he can't be seen as somebody that doesn't even get in our team fighting relegation. And then on the wings, I'm going to go... Lewis Dobbin and Jack Harrison. Garner over Godfrey's not a bad shout, to be fair, at right back. But I think Ben's done okay recently. So that might be a little bit harsh. Listen, I could take either of those wingers out. I know Jack obviously didn't start on Monday night and come on and made a positive impact. Ashley Young can't play. And for me, McNeil, he's just not on it at the moment. And that might be for various different reasons. He might be carrying a knock. It might be the off-the-pitch stuff that we all know he's been struggling with. But whatever it is, he just ain't doing it at the moment. And you can't really afford to be carrying 4, 5, 6 players that aren't doing it. And that's what Everton are doing at the moment. So I'd go with... Jesus, Cam, who's going to take our set pieces? I suppose you've got a good point, because our only way of winning a game of football, it seems, at the moment is by scoring a set piece. But I have a feeling that this will be similar to last year, and I'm not saying that we'll win 5-1, and I'm not saying that Brighton will be as naive as they were last season, because they were very, very naive, but I've got a feeling that we aren't going to have much of the ball. We aren't going to have many opportunities. So I don't think we're going to have many corners. But let's be honest, my prediction is I think he'll go with Ashley Young right back. I think he'll go McNeil, Jack Harrison and Calvert-Lewin up front, because he's so predictable. He goes with the same thing every week. I just would like something different, because that isn't working. And I think I'd rather have Dobbin in there than Ashley Young. I'll be honest. McNeil, again, I don't think he's been great recently, but you're right, he can pop up with a corner or a free kick that might get you the goal. But there needs to be changes. Up front, I think he'll go Dom. I know Dom's not being in great form. I know Dom is, the poster boy at the moment for negativity. But, who's the competition? Beto. I know people say, give him a go, he hasn't had enough chance. I'm not ruling him out or saying that he's a disaster or he won't be a success, but from what I've seen of him already in an Everton shirt, he's not as good as Dominic Calvert-Lewin, whether people like that or not. He isn't. So, there you go. We're going to leave it there. Difficult game, but hopefully Everton can get something out of it, because we are in desperate need of getting something out of it, aren't we? So, there you go. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It does only take a second if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you after.